after being dismissed like a charity case in Lauren's parents' dining room. My shirt clung to my back, soaked all the way through. My loafers made that gross squish with every step, the leather ruined for good. Couldn't feel my hands. Didn't care. My chest burned hotter than the rain was cold. That dinner was supposed to mean something. A step forward. Maybe a real seat at the table. But her dad grilled me like I was trying to lease a Mercedes on minimum wage. "What exactly do you do again?" he'd asked, tilting his wine glass, eyes like lasers. "And how stable is that?" Her mom didn't say much, just kept that little smirk on her face like she already had me figured out. Like I was a phase Lauren would outgrow. But the worst part? Lauren. She just sat there. Didn't defend me. Didn't tell them how I supported my dad, how I ran my own business, how I stayed up late fixing busted transmissions just to keep the lights on. She stayed quiet. Not a single word to back me. Not even when her mom made some offhand joke about people who work with their hands instead of their heads. I left before dessert. No dramatic exit. No raised voice. I just stood up, said I had an early job, and walked out. She didn't stop me. Didn't follow. I waited outside under the awning for half a second, thinking maybe she'd come out. But nothing. So I stepped into the street. No umbrella. No ride. Just a soaked shirt, busted shoes, and a growing hole in my gut. Quick note. Before listening, share in the comments which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. By the time I found the diner, I looked like I'd crawled out of a sewer. The guy behind the counter didn't even blink, just poured me a black coffee and nodded like, "Yeah, I've seen worse." I sat in the back booth, the vinyl sticking to my damp jeans. Steam from the coffee fogged up the window, but I could still make out the city lights bleeding through the rain. Every sip tasted like bitterness and burnt beans, but I kept drinking. Had to do something with my hands. And all I could think was, how many damn times had I convinced myself I was finally doing it right? Kept my head down my whole life. Took every shift I could get. Looked after my old man. Paid off my sister's debt when she bailed on her credit cards. And when Lauren showed up, I thought, finally. Someone who saw past the busted knuckles and oil-stained jeans. But when it mattered, when I was sitting there getting sliced apart one smug question at a time, she sat quiet. That silence said everything. So I sat in that diner, still dripping, still pissed off, just watching the rain hit the glass like it was trying to erase the whole night. For the first time in years, I had no idea what came next. No plan, no fix. Just me, a bitter cup of coffee, and a growing list of things I should have seen coming. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in the booth until the sun came up, watching the rain slow down to a drizzle, and the city start to yawn awake. When I finally stepped out, the air was thick and heavy, like it hadn't made up its mind whether to give up or come down harder. Walked back to the shop, changed into dry clothes, fired up the heater even though it was August, sat on the floor with my back against the toolbox, just breathing. Cedar Rapids ain't glamorous, never pretended to be. Grew up on the south side, in a 2-bedroom duplex that always smelled like motor oil and black coffee. My mom died when I was 9. Heart failure. One minute she was there folding laundry. The next minute the neighbors were banging on the door and my dad was yelling for an ambulance. After that, it was just the two of us. He was a mechanic, through and through. The kind who didn't believe in power steering and called every foreign car a plastic shoebox. Taught me how to gap spark plugs before I ever passed algebra. By the time I was 12, I could change out brake pads blindfolded. We didn't have vacations or cable or takeout, but I never felt poor. He made damn sure I had a clean pair of jeans, a packed lunch, and the kind of pride that didn't come from money. He had a stroke on a Tuesday. I remember that detail because Tuesdays were our slowest days at the shop I worked at. I was 23, halfway through rotating tires on a Dodge Caravan when the call came in. Hospital said it was mild, but seeing him try to speak and only slur out half his name, that was anything but mild. After that, everything changed. I moved him into the tiny apartment above the garage I'd just started renting out on the edge of town, sold off what little he had left to cover medical bills, Helped him dress every morning, watched him fumble to feed himself, tried not to let him see how much it broke me. Didn't complain, just handled it. Started small, oil changes, tune-ups, tire patches. Word of mouth helped. Folks in town liked that I charged fair, worked fast, and didn't bullshit. But I always had this picture in my head, something more. I wanted to take on real rebuilds. Vintage trucks, cafe racers, full restorations. Not just patching things up, but bringing machines back to life. That was the dream. Then Lauren showed up one day. Lexus pulling in with a flat tire and a cracked rim. I almost didn't look up when she walked in. Figured she was another rich girl too proud to call AAA. But she wasn't. She walked straight up, stuck out her hand and said, "You're Rob, right?" My friend said, "You're honest." That got my attention. She waited while I did the work, sat on the busted leather couch I'd dragged in from the curb and asked questions. Not small talk, real stuff. About my business, my dad, what I wanted long-term. She came back the next week with sandwiches. Chicken salad on rye. Sat right where she did the first time, talking to me while I rotated her tires. After a while, it became a thing. Tuesdays and Thursdays, she'd bring lunch. She called me authentic. Said I reminded her of how her grandfather used to talk about the American dream. I bought it. She'd lean over the counter with that little smile, ask if I needed anything, and I'd feel this weird kind of calm. Like maybe I wasn't just a guy covered in grease, patching rust on cars other people didn't care about. She never flinched at the smell of oil or the grime under my nails. She didn't seem embarrassed by the peeling paint on the garage door or the busted vending machine in the corner. For a while, it felt real. But now, looking back, I should have seen it. She never invited me to her place. Always had a reason. Her parents were in town. Her roommate was sick. The place was messy. Her friends would swing by sometimes in shiny SUVs, windows cracked, music blasting. I'd hear the laughs, the whispers. "Oh, this is where he works?" With that thick layer of pity under every word. Once I walked out holding a torque wrench and heard one of them say, "God, it smells like sweat and sadness." Lauren rolled her eyes like it bothered her, but she didn't say anything. Still, I told myself, it's fine. She's still here. She showed up. She brought lunch. She smiled at me like she meant it. I'd been so used to people bailing when things got tough that I started thinking her staying was some kind of proof, that her presence was enough. But presence without backbone? That's just a warm body in the room. And that night at her parents' table, all of that came into focus. She was never going to stand up for me. She just didn't want to be the one to leave. Couple days later, we were closing up the shop, and Lauren leaned on the counter, scrolling her phone like she didn't really care what came next. Then, just casually, like she was reading a dinner special off a chalkboard, she said, "My parents want to meet you, this Friday." No build-up. No, "Are you ready?" No, "It's important to me." Just dropped it in my lap like it didn't mean anything. I nodded, kept my face neutral, but inside, my stomach twisted hard. I knew exactly how this was going to go. I'd walk in already losing. Nothing I wore, nothing I said, nothing I did was going to stack up next to a wine cellar and 3 vacation homes. Her parents weren't just rich. They were loaded. Owned 3 car dealerships, a few construction companies, and, get this, a vineyard out in California they visited during harvest season. Meanwhile, I was living in a converted office above my garage. Heat barely worked, shower drained slow, and the toilet groaned every time I flushed it. My monthly income depended on how many trucks broke down on the highway. I didn't sleep much that week. I kept thinking about what to say, how to hold my fork, how not to sound like some charity case who lucked into their daughter's attention. On Friday, I closed early. Dug out the best shirt I had, white, no stains, collar still stiff. Ironed it flat on the shop counter. Polished up my boots until they didn't look like they spent 10 hours a day on concrete. Even trimmed the beard down to a clean edge. My truck was still on jacks. Transmission rebuild wasn't done, so I took the damn bus. Figured maybe walking in humble would play better than not showing up at all. That ride was quiet. Dead quiet. Nobody looked up, nobody said a word. Just the hum of the engine and that slow, jerky pull every time we hit a red light. Then this old guy gets on. 80, maybe more. Wearing a coat 2 sizes too big. Breathing heavy. He shuffled toward the driver and started pleading. Said he needed to get to Mercy Hospital to see his wife. Something about a fall, bleeding, maybe worse. The driver just stared at him like he was a problem, not a person. Everyone else? Glued to their phones. Not a single person even looked up. I stood, walked up to the front, and handed the driver a 10. "He's with me," I said. "Just get us there." The guy sat beside me, wheezing a little, hands shaking. I asked if he was all right. He said, "Just scared I'm gonna miss her. We've been married 62 years. She's all I got left." Name was Raymond, Korean War vet. Said he'd worked 35 years in a steel mill before retiring. "World don't make men like it used to," he told me, eyes cloudy but sharp. "Now it's all screens and shortcuts. You hold the door for someone and they look at you like you asked for their wallet." I told him he wasn't wrong. By the time we got to the hospital, he was breathing easier. We got off at the same stop, and before he headed inside, he turned to me, gripped my hand tight and said, "You've got good in you, son. Don't let anyone take that from you." Then he walked inside without another word. I stood there a second, watching those automatic doors close behind him. People rushed past me on the sidewalk, umbrellas and suits and stressed-out faces, like the world was allergic to stillness. But I stayed right there, holding on to that one line. The bus stop was 5 blocks from Lauren's parents' house. I walked the rest, heart pounding harder with every step. Their street looked like it was plucked off a magazine cover. Perfect lawns, brick driveways, 3-car garages, a fountain out front for no damn reason. When I reached the house, it was already glowing like a showroom. Warm lights, spotless windows, front porch wide enough to park a boat. I stood there a second, double-checked my shirt, took a breath, and rang the bell. A man in a black uniform answered. "You're here for Miss Lauren?" he asked, already turning to let me in. I stepped inside, boots silent on the marble floor. The place smelled like expensive candles and polished wood. One of those houses that didn't look lived in, just staged. Lauren came down the stairs in a blue dress I'd never seen before. She looked great. Always did. But when her eyes met mine, there was something else. Like she was already bracing for impact. Her dad walked out next, tall, clean-shaven, one of those stiff postures that tells you he runs meetings, not conversations. He gave me a handshake like it was a challenge and said, "You made it." Yeah, I made it. Barely. I followed them into the dining room, heart thudding, palms starting to sweat. I sat at a table that probably cost more than my truck, staring at silverware I didn't know how to use. I could already feel the judgment tightening around the edges of the room, like I'd walked into a spotlight I hadn't asked for. But I smiled, straightened up, told myself, "You got this far. Don't back down now," even if I already knew how this night was going to end. I followed Lauren and her parents into the dining room like I was walking into a courtroom. Everything around me screamed money. The chandelier above the table looked like it belonged in a palace. Crystal, glass, something heavy and fragile. The table itself was this long slab of dark wood, polished so smooth it practically reflected the ceiling. And there we were, 4 people sitting at a table that could have seated 20. A tiny dinner party in a mansion built for people who never had to work overtime. Her dad took the seat at the head of the table like it was a throne. Lauren sat to his right, her mom across from me. I took the spot I was obviously meant for, at the very end, like the help. The butler, yeah, they had a goddamn butler, poured wine into glasses that clinked like they were made of something too expensive to pronounce. I passed, told them I didn't drink on a work night. That earned me a slight eyebrow raise from her dad. Strike one, I guess. He started the questioning right away. Asked about the shop. "How many employees?" "None, just me." "Do you do body work or just basic maintenance?" "Mostly mechanical stuff. Oil changes, tune-ups, brakes, that kind of thing." He nodded like he was taking mental notes. like he was evaluating me for a business loan he had no intention of approving. Her mom didn't say much at first, just sipped her wine and smiled without her eyes. She looked like the kind of woman who hired people to pick out her outfits and never once learned how to vacuum. Then came the big one. "Where did you go to college?" I told them I didn't. Went straight to work after high school. Her mom blinked like I'd told her I lived in a cave. Her dad leaned back a little, arms crossed, lips twitching like he was trying to hide a smirk. "No college?" he said. "So, you're self-taught?" "More like life-taught," I said. "My dad was a mechanic, taught me everything I know." That's when Lauren looked down at her plate and went quiet. Her mom chimed in again. "You rent, right?" She said it the way you'd ask someone if they had lice. I nodded. "Yeah, above my shop. It's not much, but it's mine." Her dad chuckled, swirling his wine like it was part of some inside joke I wasn't invited to. "Must be hard, fixing old cars in this economy." I let that sit for a second before answering. People still need their cars to run, especially when they can't afford a new one every 5 years. He gave me this tight little nod like, fair enough. But his eyes said something else. Like I was small. Like I should have been thanking them for the chance to breathe the same air. Meanwhile, Lauren just sat there. Not one word in my corner. Nothing about how I'd helped her friend get her car running at midnight last month. Nothing about the time I drove across town to bring her cold medicine when she had the flu. Not even a damn, he's doing what he loves. Just silence. They asked about my family. I told them about my dad, how he had a stroke, how I'd moved him in with me. Her mom tilted her head like I was some wild animal doing a neat trick. "That's admirable," she said. Not kind, not loyal, not even wow. Just admirable, like I'd brought her a charity brochure. Dinner went on like that. Small bites of steak I could barely taste, forks scraping plates, long pauses where nobody said anything, and I felt every second of them. By dessert, I was staring at the clock on the wall, wondering how long I had to stay before it wasn't considered rude to leave. I cleared my throat. "I've got an early client tomorrow. Better call it a night." Her dad stood up slowly. "Of course. Busy man." Her mom stayed seated, just lifted her wine glass and gave me a faint smile. I wasn't sure if it was meant to be polite or victorious. Lauren walked me to the foyer but didn't follow me outside. Didn't offer a ride. Didn't ask if I needed to call a cab. I opened the door myself and stepped out into the rain. No umbrella, no jacket. Just me, wet boots, and enough cold in my chest to make me feel like I'd been carved out. I walked. Didn't care where. Didn't care how far. Just needed to move. I'd never felt smaller in my life. I got back to the shop a little after midnight, soaked to the bone and bone-tired. Every step echoed off the concrete like I didn't belong in my own damn place. I didn't even bother turning the lights on. Just walked straight past the toolboxes and lifted cars, sat down with my back against the wall, and stared into the dark. My boots were still dripping, leaving muddy prints under me, but I didn't take them off. I just sat there, wet and silent, listening to the hum of the fridge in the corner and the tick of the wall clock above the office door. Upstairs, my old man was asleep, probably snoring through an old Western remote still in his hand, recliner half back like always. He didn't need to see me like this, defeated, angry, embarrassed. I stayed like that for over an hour. Didn't move, didn't cry. Just breathed through clenched teeth and tried to forget the sound of Lauren's mom asking if I rented like I was contagious. The next few days I drowned myself in work. Didn't answer texts, didn't check social media, just fixed cars. Brake replacements, engine flushes, suspension jobs, anything that came through the door, I took it. Kept my hands moving so my mind didn't go back to that goddamn dinner. On Thursday morning, I came in early. Still had grease on my knuckles from the night before. My dad was usually up by then, sitting by the little window upstairs with his coffee and paper. But that morning, everything felt off. I was halfway through brewing coffee when I heard the thud. A deep, sick kind of sound from the stairwell. I ran. He was crumpled at the bottom of the stairs, one hand on his chest, eyes wide, gasping like he couldn't remember how to breathe. I dropped to my knees, yelled his name, tried to keep him upright while I fumbled for my phone. His skin was pale, not just pale, gray. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Just pain. The ambulance came fast. Lights flashed across the windows while I held his hand in the back, telling him to hang on, stay with me, keep breathing. At Mercy Hospital, they moved quick. Monitors, IVs, paperwork shoved at me while I stood there still in my coveralls, smelling like oil and panic. A doctor pulled me aside. White coat, tired eyes. Massive blockage. We're prepping for surgery, possibly double bypass. I nodded. Didn't ask questions. Just kept nodding like if I stopped, I'd lose it right there. We'll do everything we can, he said. Then I was back in the waiting room, surrounded by coughing strangers, screaming toddlers, vending machines that ate your money without blinking. When they finally gave me a number, I nearly laughed. North of 95,000, the billing guy said. He didn't even blink when he said it. Like that number meant something normal. Like that was just another Tuesday for them. I told him we didn't have that kind of insurance. He gave me a stack of forms. Try the state program, he said. Maybe the hospital foundation. I spent the next 3 hours on the phone. Medicaid said no. State emergency fund said maybe in 6 months. Local grants? Closed for the year. Every call ended with sorry, or we can't help, or try somewhere else. Finally, a nurse who'd overheard me said under her breath, "You need a miracle." I didn't say anything back. Just nodded, grabbed my stuff, and walked outside into the August heat like it could melt the pressure off my shoulders. I stood in the parking lot staring at the sky, wondering if maybe this was it. Maybe this was the moment where everything just snapped. I hated what came next. Hated that it even crossed my mind. But as I stood there, fists clenched, jaw tight, I thought about Lauren, about her family, the money they sat on like royalty, the vineyard, the marble floors, the antique goddamn chairs no one even sat in. She had it. I knew she did, and I hated myself for thinking it, for even considering picking up the phone. But I also knew what was at stake. I couldn't lose him. Not now. Not like this. My dad wasn't just some old man with a bum heart. He was the reason I still believed in work, in showing up, in doing things right even when it's hard. He gave me his name, his tools, his shop. He gave me everything. I stood there for another 10 minutes with my hand on my phone, watching traffic roll by, sun beating down on my shoulders, trying to convince myself that pride didn't matter when someone's life was hanging by a thread. I didn't call. Not yet. But the thought stuck, and it made my skin crawl. I didn't sleep much the next couple nights. Just laid on the old couch in the shop office, staring at the ceiling fan creaking slow circles, thinking about every bill, every missed option, every no I got from the state. I'd walk upstairs, check on my dad, pretend like things were under control. He'd smile weakly, ask how the business was holding up, and I'd lie through my teeth. We're good. I've got it covered. He didn't need the truth. Not in that condition. But every time I looked at him lying in that recliner with wires stuck to his chest and a pill schedule taped to the fridge, my gut twisted harder. On the third day, I cracked. I paced for an hour before I finally hit the call button. My thumb hovered over it like it weighed 20 pounds. When her name lit up, I froze. But I pressed it anyway. She picked up like she was answering a number she didn't recognize. No, hello, no warmth, just that sharp, flat, "This is Lauren." Lauren, I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't life or death. My voice sounded rough, tired. She didn't respond right away. I pressed on. "It's my dad. He needs emergency surgery. They're saying double bypass, maybe more. The hospital wants $95,000 up front." She cut in before I finished. "Told you this would happen," she muttered. I blinked. "What?" "My parents warned me," she said, voice like ice. "They said you'd end up needing money. I just didn't think it'd be this soon. I'm not asking for me, I said, jaw clenched. I'm asking for the man who raised me, who gave up his whole damn life to make sure I had food on the table. I'll pay you back every cent. I don't care how long it takes. She laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even long. Just this bitter, breathy little chuckle, like I was confirming everything she thought she knew about me. I'm not a bank, Rob, she said. Don't ever call me again. Then the line went dead. I stood in the middle of the garage, staring at my phone like maybe she'd call back. Maybe she'd say she didn't mean it. But nothing happened. The rain started outside. I didn't even realize it was coming down until I saw it streaking the windows, fat drops smearing the grime on the glass. I sat down on the floor, back against the wall, same spot I'd sat the night I left her parents' house. My hand was still shaking. That cold numbness had settled in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake off. I wasn't mad. Not yet. I was something worse. I was helpless. And I didn't know what the hell to do next. That Saturday, I was sitting in the hospital hallway, elbows on my knees, hands hanging low like they couldn't hold anything else. The bench under me was hard as hell, but I didn't notice. I'd been staring at my boots for close to an hour, watching dried grease flake off the laces like dust. Didn't even look up when I heard someone walking toward me. Then I heard it. Gravel voice, calm and steady. Son, that you? I turned. Raymond. Same tan coat, same clean-pressed pants, same face like he'd seen the world fall apart and figured out how to keep walking through it anyway. He sat down next to me without waiting for an invite, like he already knew something was wrong. You all right? He asked, quiet. That was it. The dam broke. I didn't cry, but I told him everything. Told him about the surgery, the money, the calls I made, the call I didn't want to make. I told him about Lauren, the silence, the cold laugh over the phone. He listened, didn't flinch, didn't say sorry or, man, that's rough. Just nodded like he'd heard versions of this before. How much you need? He asked after a long pause. I shook my head. Doesn't matter. I'm not asking. You didn't ask me to ride the bus either, he said, voice flat. You just did it. That was $10. And this is life or death, he snapped. That counts more, not less. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just sat there, heart pounding, jaw tight, still trying to hold on to whatever scrap of pride I had left. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my son. I almost stopped him, but something in the way he said it told me not to. 10 minutes later, a black SUV pulled into the hospital loop. Clean, quiet, expensive. A man stepped out, tall and squared up, not dressed like money, but moved like it. Tidy jeans, navy jacket, boots with shine, looked like someone who didn't ask twice. Daniel, Raymond said, nodding toward me. This is the one I told you about. Daniel walked straight over, held out his hand. Dad says you're the real deal. That good enough for me. I didn't know how to answer. I just shook his hand, firm and fast. He looked me in the eye like he was sizing me up, but not in the way Lauren's dad did. This was different. He wasn't looking down at me. He was checking for weight, character. He didn't ask for documents, didn't ask for proof. He just asked, when's the surgery scheduled? I told him we hadn't even been able to schedule it. Couldn't without the money. He nodded once, pulled out his phone, and walked a few feet away. Started talking fast, finance terms, routing numbers, payment schedules. I barely understood half of it. Raymond leaned toward me, voice low. Daniel runs a logistics firm, 5 warehouses, 2 freight yards. He does all right. I didn't know what to say. I just looked at Raymond and muttered, why me? Because when I needed someone, you were the only one who stood up. That stays with a man. Daniel came back a minute later. Give the hospital your dad's info. Surgery's greenlit. You're covered. I stood there, mouth open, trying to form the word, why. He cut me off before I could say anything. You'll pay it forward someday. That's enough. I tried to tell him I'd repay it. Every dollar. Work it off. Send payments. Whatever it took. He just smiled, shook his head. We're good. Then he nodded once, clapped his dad on the shoulder, and headed back to his SUV like he had another 1,000 things to fix that day. Raymond stood up, dusted off his coat like we'd just finished lunch. People think the world's all hard edges now, he said. But it ain't. Not always. I nodded, still stunned. Go be with your dad, he added. I'll check in tomorrow. Then he walked off down the hallway, hands in his pockets, like he'd just dropped off groceries, not saved my father's life. I stood there in the same spot for another few minutes, brain spinning, chest tight. The relief was too big to feel all at once. It came in waves. I felt like I could breathe again, like the weight had shifted off my spine just enough to stand up straight. And underneath all that, the thing that stuck with me most? The help didn't come from where I expected. Didn't come from love or loyalty or someone who knew me inside and out. It came from a stranger I bought a bus ride for, and his son, who trusted a word from his old man more than any bank account. Surgery was scheduled 2 days later. I didn't leave the hospital once that day, not for food, not for air, not for anything. I paced that damn hallway for 6 straight hours, back and forth, wearing a groove in the tile like a man waiting on a verdict. Every second dragged. I watched nurses come and go, listened to monitors beep behind curtains, and kept thinking, if this goes sideways, I don't walk out of here the same. But he pulled through. Doctor came out around 5:30, pulled off his cap, and gave me a nod. He's stable. Surgery went well. I sat down hard and didn't move for a long time. Just sat there, elbows on knees, letting the news sink in piece by piece. Raymond showed up that night. Said he just wanted to see for himself. Brought a thermos of black coffee and a pack of those powdered donuts from the vending machine. Sat with me in silence for over an hour. Daniel came the next morning, straight from a meeting, still in a dress shirt and slacks, holding 2 coffees and a paper bag. Nurses said the cafeteria food sucks, he said. Figured I'd bring something edible. He kept it light. Asked the staff about my dad's progress, cracked jokes about the paint color in the waiting room, even got a laugh out of a tech who looked like she hadn't smiled in days. Over the next few weeks, those 2 men, neither of them blood, showed up more than anyone else. They visited, checked in, brought lunch, asked about the shop, made sure I wasn't spiraling. My dad got stronger every day. First he could sit up. Then he walked a few steps. Then he was giving nurses hell about the hospital TV remote. By week 3, he looked like himself again. Pale, thinner, but alert. Sharp. Tired in the eyes, but with a stubbornness I recognized deep in my bones. One afternoon, while Dad was doing laps around the hall with his IV stand, Daniel and I sat outside in the hospital garden. Plastic chairs, weak coffee, sun barely warming the air. You ever think about expanding? He asked out of nowhere. I raised an eyebrow. You offering me a job? No, he said, shaking his head. I'm talking about your shop, your business. You got skill, Rob. More than just patch jobs and quick fixes. You've got vision. That garage of yours is like stuffing a V8 into a go-kart frame. I let out a half laugh. Yeah, well, dreams don't pay rent. Daniel leaned forward. But they can, if you've got the right backing. I stayed quiet, waiting for the catch. There's always a catch. He looked at me and said, Tell me what you really want. No fluff. I told him, straight up, how I'd always wanted a full setup. Bays with lifts, custom tools, body work, restoration work. I wanted to take beat-up classics and make them sing again. Trucks, muscle cars, bikes. Hell, even tractors if someone loved it enough. He listened, every word, then nodded once. 4 weeks later, we were signing papers at a commercial property office on the east side of town. New space, twice the size of the old one. 2 lifts, separate paint room, storage out back. Daniel fronted the investment, but he didn't hand it to me like a gift. It was a partnership. All business, clean terms, both names on the documents. "You've got skin in the game now," he said. "Don't forget that." I didn't. Not for 1 second. We spent days moving equipment. He sent guys from his warehouse crew to help with the heavy stuff. I brought over every socket wrench, every compressor, every grease gun from the old place. Cleaned them, organized them, set everything up the way I always dreamed I would. The day we opened the doors, officially, I brought my dad over in the truck. He'd been home for a couple weeks by then. Still weak, but moving better. I helped him down from the passenger side, walked him slow across the lot, opened the garage door. He stepped in, took one long look around, gleaming floor, new lifts, fresh paint, my tools lined up like soldiers, and then he cried. Didn't say a word at first. Just stood there, hands shaking, eyes locked on the second gear customs sign hanging above the office door. Then he turned to me, voice barely holding steady, and said, "You did good, son." That moment, that made all the other ones, every sleepless night, every slammed door, every damn second of doubt, worth it. 6 months later, the sign went up. Big red letters on a brushed metal slab, bolted right into the brick above the garage doors. Second Gear Customs. Daniel stood next to me with the drill while I tightened the last bolt. My dad was in a lawn chair behind us, flannel shirt over his shoulders, coffee cup in hand, grinning like a proud old general watching the troops fall in line. The place looked real now, not like a patched-together side hustle. It had soul. It had muscle. Concrete floors sealed fresh, lifts gleaming under the overhead lights, fresh tool cabinets lined against the back wall like a damn army. First job we took? My dad's old '73 Chevy. That truck had been parked beside the shop for years, rust hugging every panel, interior torn to hell, engine barely a whisper of what it once was. He'd tried to fix it over and over again, but something always got in the way. Bills, injuries, life. Now, we did it right. Pulled the whole thing apart, frame, suspension, wiring, rebuilt it from the bones up. My dad sat in a folding chair watching us work, tossing advice, cursing every bolt that fought back, smiling every time the thing started to look like a truck again. It was finished 2 days before the grand opening. We backed it out onto the lot, chrome shining under the morning sun, engine purring like it was fresh off the lot in '73. That morning, Raymond showed up with his grandkids, little boys in matching ball caps, both of them bouncing with questions about the old cars and engines in progress. Raymond just stood there, arms crossed, proud as hell, like this whole thing was family now. Daniel was in a polo that actually had the shop name embroidered on it. His idea. Said we should look real for the ribbon cutting. He handed me the scissors and stepped back. Cameras clicked. People clapped. I didn't say anything. Just cut the ribbon clean through and opened the doors. It didn't feel flashy. Didn't feel loud. It felt earned. That night I got a text. Lauren. Saw the article. Congrats. That's it. No apology. No sorry about your dad. No, I was wrong. Just that short, dry little message like she was checking a box on some guilt list she kept buried deep. I stared at it for a full minute, maybe more. Not mad, not heartbroken. Just done. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. It hit me in that moment. Some people disappear when things get hard because that's all they ever learn to do. They walk when things start cracking. They flinch at pressure. Others? They show up, even when it's messy, especially when it's messy. Me? I kept showing up, through the bills, the broken lifts, the slow days, the late nights when I thought we'd never get a build out on time, through hospital visits and busted knuckles and frost-covered mornings when the heater still hadn't been installed. And people noticed. The local paper did a write-up the following week. Full spread, headline read, "From Rust to Redemption, the garage that started with nothing." There was a picture of me and my dad standing beside the Chevy, arms around each other, both of us squinting from the sun. They printed our story. Told the town what it took to get here. Named Raymond and Daniel by first name. Told it right. We framed the article and hung it on the wall by the front counter. People started coming in just to see it. Some of them didn't even need work done. They just wanted to shake a hand. Say it meant something to see a place like this built from dirt and sweat instead of venture capital and fake smiles. Every time someone new walked in, I remembered that first night in the diner, soaked to the skin, feeling like a damn ghost. Now, I didn't feel like a ghost anymore. I felt like a man with roots, with a purpose. Not because things got easy, but because I didn't quit when they got hard. The rain came down sideways that night, thick sheets slapping against the windows like the storm had a score to settle. I was still under the hood of a '69 Mustang, trying to beat a Friday deadline when the bell over the front door rang. I wiped my hands, came around the corner, and there she was, a teenage girl, soaked to the bone, hoodie clinging to her arms, shoes squishing water across the concrete. "Sorry," she said, voice shaking. "My car died out on Highway 30. I tried calling a few shops, but no one picked up. I don't have cash for a tow." She looked like she'd been standing in that rain for miles. Everyone else passed her by. That much was obvious. But I didn't. I nodded toward the couch in the corner. "Sit. Warm up." She hesitated, still half shivering like she thought I was about to tell her to leave. I grabbed a towel from the shop sink and a styrofoam cup of the cheap coffee we kept on hand. "Here," I said, handing her both. "You're all right now." She took them without a word, curled into the corner of the couch, steam rising from the cup like hope. I didn't ask for details, didn't ask who she was, where she was headed, or what went wrong. Next morning, we towed her car in ourselves, me and one of the new guys. Starter was shot, battery nearly dead. I had it fixed before lunch. When I handed her the keys, she blinked like she didn't understand. "How much?" "Nothing," I said. "You're good." She stared at me like I'd just handed her the moon. "Why'd you help me?" she asked. Not rude, just honest, curious. I thought about it for a second, looked her in the eye and said, "Someone once did the same for me. That's how the world changes." She nodded, didn't say anything for a while, just stood there, hands on her keys, tears welling in the corners, but never falling. Then she turned and walked out into the sun, rain finally gone, engine turning smooth as she pulled away. My dad was upstairs, watching from the little window in the loft. He saw the whole thing. When I looked up, he gave me that slow smile, the one that said, "You didn't just fix the car, you fixed something bigger." And I stood there for a while after she left, thinking about it all. How I'd started in the rain. No umbrella, no ride, no respect. Just soaked shoes and silence at a table where I didn't belong. How I'd dragged myself out of that night. Not because someone saved me, but because I kept showing up until real people did. I thought about Lauren, about how quiet she'd been when it mattered, how that silence, at the time, felt like the end of everything. Turned out, it was the beginning. Her silence made space for people like Raymond, like Daniel, like the girl I helped that night. People who don't just speak, people who act. My hands still smelled like oil. My boots were still scuffed from years on concrete. But I didn't feel small anymore. I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. I had my shop. I had my old man, alive and watching from the window. And I had people around me who saw value where others only saw dirt. And that was worth more than all the family estates in the world. Would you have called Lauren in Rob's shoes, or held on to your pride? Drop your answer in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more true story narrations.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.